What's up, everybody? Welcome to another live Friday night edition of the CFB DFS Masterminds. This is Gloeck. That's Schrek from Win Daily Sports. Dave Gleckner, Joel Schrek. Glad to have you here tonight to talk about the Week 6 matchup coming up in college football. Matchups being the DFS slate. We're focused on the early one. We'll get into all those games. But Joel, how'd you do last week, man? And welcome to a fun Friday again.
Listen, we're in the swing of things. I'm really excited. Week 6. You've heard us say at the beginning of the year is challenging. We need data on these guys before we can really get into the swing of things. We've got it now. We're into week 6. We know which teams are the funnel defenses, the high-scoring games. You can go into each game with a lot more confidence. And we're off to a really good start this year. Last week was our worst week of the year, but it wasn't terrible. It was still we missed on a couple quarterbacks last week. Outside of we nailed the running backs last week. That was perfect. We were pretty good with receivers. This quarterback, we didn't quite get right. I think consider all things concerning that being our worst week, this is a heck of a start to the season for us. And I like what I see this week. I think this is a week where there's a few obvious games to target, a few obvious spots to kind of push your pieces in, find those high-scoring games. And I think that's going to be the difference maker. The big thing to solve for this week, more than anything, is that there's probably going to be some pieces that are super chalky. Right? Everyone's going to be playing. There's a handful of guys that seem very obvious. What I say, and especially in college football, that does not mean you fade the chalk. College football is not the sport where you fade the chalk. You play the chalk. You just make sure you find spots to get different elsewhere so you don't have too popular of a lineup. So we'll get into it. Not the biggest slate. It's only, 12 games, right, on the main slate? 12 games on the main slate. So we should be able to go through each game relatively quickly. There's 2 main games to talk through that are going to be the priority. There's probably going to be a bunch of games we can skip through. So we'll dive right in. We'll start here today with the Red River rivalry.
Pretty cool.
To me, this game is more entertaining in real life than it is for DFS purposes because both of these teams, I think, are better defensively than offensively than they typically are. Who are you looking at in this game, Dave?
Yeah, real quick. One of my good friends actually went to the game with his wife. Not Texas fans, not Oklahoma fans, just big college fans. Flew out, I think it was this morning. It's getting the whole Red River rivalry kind of feel. And he said it's amazing down there. It's going to be fun. It's a game, probably the biggest game of the weekend from a rankings perspective. You got, I think, 3 versus 12. So it's going to go a long way in deciding potentially who goes to the college football playoffs. So it'll be fun. But in this one, I'm with you, Joe. I think the defenses are a little better. And I mean, even though we're seeing Gabriel put up some pretty eye-opening numbers, I think it's going to be a tough spot for me to find him in a lot of the lineups this week. Texas is good against the pass. Ranked 26th against QBs and fantasy points. I think I'm going to struggle a little there, but I do think I'll see myself getting some Quinn Ewers on the other side. I think Oklahoma is still a little vulnerable to the pass.
And I'm with you. I think Gabriel and Ewers could potentially have good games here. I just don't think they're going to have great games. And they're both priced 8,500, 8,900, just a little too high for I don't think the ceiling is high enough. And there's some other spots with guys who I think have higher ceiling. So it's not that I don't think they could have good games. I just think the price to upside isn't there here.
Yeah, but the good thing about each of them, they do run the ball a little bit. We've seen Gabriel have 3 games over 8 carries. So that's good. I mean, not a guy that's going to, sprint it out and hit one open field for 50 or so, but he's going to be able to maybe even get some sneaks near the goal line. And the same with Ewers. I mean, he's been okay rushing the ball, and he's definitely scored some from up close. He's scored a rushing touchdown in 4 or 5 games, and it's 5 total rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that is a lot of rushing touchdowns. And he's not getting a whole lot of rushing yards. What that means is when they get close, they're letting him run. So if you get a touchdown buffer about your quarterback, those points do go a long way. He's got 3 kind of ceiling games at basically 30 points and up, which is big. One against Bama, which is obviously very impressive.
Yeah.
But the Rice and Kentucky games were more kind of smash spots for him than I think this game will be.
Yeah. Well, Kansas, same thing. But yeah. Yep.
I'm sorry, I said Kentucky. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just so that game bothered me a little bit last week. And even from a DFS, waiting to call out, I think Jaden Daniels, they called out in the last minute.
Yeah.
That game. And that really screwed up some I know I was at a family party. I'm like, no, Bean.
That's caused me to lose all trust in Daniel. I just won't play him now because that can happen any week with him. He's always hurt, and like the worst case scenario is just getting 0 out of nowhere out of your quarterback. So like that just means he's on my don't play no fly zone because I just too big of a risk at this point.
Yeah, do you have the games up here?
I'm sorry.
Do you have? Can you pull the games up?
Oh, I thought I was showing it. My bad.
Yeah, no problem.
Pull that back up. Yes. So here we go. So looking over at the running backs, I will say Jonathan Brooks is probably entering a point of like matchup proof. They have a pretty huge O line. Like if he's gonna get 20 touches, the floor is so high. And at 6,700, the price is high, but it's definitely not too high. This Oklahoma team is good against the run. This is not like a prime matchup for him, but I think this is an elite Texas offensive line. He's getting 20 touches. You can kind of play him in any spot here.
I agree. I think he's probably, if you're going to circle a guy on tomorrow's slate in this game, I think it's Brooks. He's probably going to be the most played, and he's probably going to be my favorite to play in this game. I mean, there's some decent receivers, but both teams spread the ball around more than some teams. So yeah, I think Brooks is the top dog on this in this game.
I agree. I'm not really interested in any of the receivers, and I think to your point, they spread it out too much. You know, the guys to play would be Anthony and Worthy, but at those prices, there's some other guys that I think are just way better plays than they are with way more upside. So if they were like 5K, then I would be playing them. But at 6K, I don't want those guys as my top play at receiver.
Yeah, I agree. The one, I mean, I might throw Jatavian Sanders in there, tight end from Texas. 4,900 is a good, like you said, that key 5,000 range. He gets a good amount of volume. He didn't last week versus Kansas, but I mean, just look at the Bama and Baylor games, 5 receptions. So I think he could. I could see myself getting him in if I want to do a little small stack with Ewers and Brooks.
I would agree. Sanders he's the tight end, but yeah, he's the play out of all these guys that I would squeeze in. All right. Well, it doesn't take us long to get to the featured game of the day. This is the game you want to target. My biggest concern with this game is everyone's playing. So it is not going to be unique. I mean, there's going to be a ton of ownership, a unique amount of ownership, meaning like I think we're going to see some of these guys 50 and 60% owned, which in a main slate is ridiculous. But rightfully so. This game is a 64 point total. It might be 63 and a half. LSU is the perfect funnel team where they have a good offense, they're going to score a lot, and they don't have a good defense. And we've seen Missouri look very good. I mean, Cook has thrown for 300-yard games in a row. He's also ran for 3 touchdowns this year. At 7,400, it's a spot where this game could be that back and forth. You just kind of game stack it and fill in around it, which I'm going to do a lot of. I mean, Daniels is the best fantasy quarterback in the country. And to me, it's really not even close. I don't understand why he wouldn't be like when we saw Caleb Williams and Sanders go to 95, 10K, I don't see why Jaden Williams is there. 9K still feels underpriced for him and for a guy who's going to give you 10 to 15 rushes as well as throw for 300 yards pretty consistently. He's an easy smash play here this week.
Yeah, interesting note about this game. LSU has gone over the total in 9 straight games. And 12 of the last 13. I think a bunch of those were 65-point totals too, which is right around where this number is. It's going to be a smash spot, and it's one we're just going to have to play. But it's one, it reminds me a little bit of Oregon, Colorado when we talked about this, even though, I mean, that got away. But even last week, if you got into the Colorado USC game and you were able to balance it correctly with Caleb Williams, you were able to cash, and you were able to actually jump up the boards very quickly because there were some guys in that game that popped for cheap. So I think the hardest thing in this game will be finding a way to get 4 to 5 players. You're going to need to play 4 to 5 if you can. So get 4 to 5 and then be able to still afford others is where it's going to get tricky. But I'm with you. I mean, Jaden Daniels' floor in this game almost feels like 35.
And then that's what you're getting from him. But I think you made a good point. I think the biggest difference that I'm seeing between this game and the Colorado game last week was Williams and Sanders last week were 10-5, 9-5.
Yeah, true.
So hard to build around. There's a significant difference between 9 and 7-5. Like,
yes,
you can get those guys in and still play the top receivers. And like last week, it was so hard to build a balanced roster that I remember I was watching the games with my dad, and I didn't have a lot of that Colorado game, and my dad basically plays my lineup every week and like follows along with me. And my dad looking at me as the afternoon game is starting. He's like, "You're screwed. Like you're toast. Like this. What are you gonna do?" And I'm like, "Be patient." I was like, if you played Williams and Sanders, you just couldn't afford a balanced lineup. There's gonna be holes in your lineup. And as long as my guys come through from here, we're gonna catch them. And that's exactly what happened. The Memphis game happened. The running back did well. The Boise State running back did well. And we caught all those guys because they had a couple zeros just because you couldn't really make all those guys work. So this week is different. You can make all these guys work because the salaries are a bit cheaper. So back to the point, Daniels, number one quarterback, smash play, easy to go. Cook, I don't know if he's number 2, but he's in my top 3 or 4 quarterbacks this week. Definitely a guy I'll be playing a lot of. Going to running back, Schrader's a little overpriced here. Great game environment, great spot. 6,900 is a lot to pay for him. My rule with Schrader is I'll probably have him in a few lineups, but it'll be only in lineups that I'm basically game stacking this game.
Yeah, that's interesting. So would you have, and I agree with you, Schrader's a little too expensive. We know he's the guy and we'll get, 70% of the touches, but would you play him with Cook?
That's a good question.
Would you play him as a run back to LSU?
I probably wouldn't. I'd probably go one or the other. If I'm playing Cook, I'd probably avoid Schrader. And then if I'm playing Schrader, I'll probably do a different quarterback.
Yep. I agree. I think that's the way to roll in this game. I could even still play Schrader with a Burden. I don't mind.
Yes,
and keeping him away from Cook. I can go running back receiver in this one because what the key to that and where Joel and I think alike is if I'm going to play Schrader, that is taking touchdowns away from Cook.
Exactly.
I can still play the receivers and get the touchdowns, but not getting the throwing touchdowns that I'd probably want. So, yep.
And the thought of it, listen, it's not a perfect science, but the thought of it is, if Cook runs for 3, it's unlikely that – if Schrader runs for 3, it's unlikely that Cook is also going to run for 1. So it limits your Cook upside at that point. So it's kind of like odds are only one of these 2 guys at this price will smash.
Yep.
Now receiver, I'm the crazy thing about this game is, and this is like I'm not even exaggerating, you really might have the top 3 receivers on the slate in this game. 3.
And well priced. I'm stunned. We're sitting here talking about guys that are like 10th on the board, 12th on the board, below 7K. Obviously Ohio State's going to dominate the top, and I get it, but Neighbors, the guy falls asleep and scores 20.
I would say if I did the pricing for this slate, I would have made Neighbors and Burden the top 2 price receivers.
And especially with the game environment that we could be in. So I'm with you. I can see myself potentially going 1 quarterback, 4 receivers in this game. I could also see, a 2 quarterback, 3 receiver combo, but it is priced well enough that I could get there.
And it is. As of now, the way I put my lineups, Neighbors, Thomas, and Burden are the 3 highest owned receivers that I have in my lineup. I'm playing them everywhere. And because of the game environment, like in a regular game, I don't love playing 2 receivers on the same team because this is such a high total and what we're expecting to see in this game. And what we've seen already this season where they both have proven they can produce results in one game, I have no problem just going all in with all 3 of these guys in a lot of my lineup. So that is very much on my plan. And I'm also going to throw in Weeze, who is coming on as the second option in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a ton of – last week he had 10 receptions. If this game has the explosive nature that we think it has at 5,500, Weeze is in the mix too. He's not the top 3 receivers on the slate, but at 5,500, he's in the mix for me. I'll certainly get a lot of exposure to him as well.
Yeah, he was a transfer, wasn't he? I feel like he was like –
I don't know. We can look it up though.
I feel like he was Oklahoma or somewhere like that.
That does sound like it could be.
Yeah, I just remember him playing somewhere else. But so
there you go. Oklahoma nailed it. Oh, yeah, I do remember. You're right. And he had a couple big games last year there too.
And to your point, this is what I'm getting at. Transfers take a couple weeks sometimes. Yeah. And now he's starting to roll in and find this offense in a good Missouri team. So I think this is a perfect week for him to really – rise up to the occasion. Burden's going to be, he's awesome. They can throw him a screen and can house it from anywhere. And he's speedy enough to get all the other balls. But I think they're going to really have the focus on Burden. Weiss is a really nice play. I like it.
I like the Weiss play. All right. Well, there you have it. Get as much exposure to that game as you can. That's the one that's going to be explosive. We'll move over now to this Maryland Ohio State game. This one's interesting. I am taking the notion of I'm going to fade it. I just think there's so many other plays, and if you're going to go all in on the game before, you can't really afford to play Neighbors, Thomas, and Burden and squeeze one of these guys in. So you got to pick your spots. I think this Ohio State team is handicapped by mediocre quarterback play.
Yeah.
And I think because of that and the pricing, the upside isn't there. So therefore, I'm going to take a stance, and I'm pretty much full fading them.
Yeah, so I can understand that. One point, I think I'm big on Travion Henderson this week. I know he's priced up, but here's the thing. Maryland, they're all hyped up. They're all juiced up. They're playing well. They're undefeated, but they're 0-31 against ranked Big Ten teams since they did come to the Big Ten. And it hasn't been close. They've lost by 30-some points. Ohio State's going to score in this game, I feel. You're right. The play at quarterback is it's bad. So I don't, 8,100 is actually not a bad price from McCord, but I can't get there because it's not in GPPs. If you want to go cash, maybe get a steady 20 to 25 points, I'm fine. But I need to find my points somewhere. So for me, I'm still thinking about Henderson in this game.
Henderson's interesting. He's certainly talented to be, the price is fair. Like the talent's there. He certainly has the capability of completely breaking the slate. My only hesitation with Henderson is not his talent, not even that the defense is that good. I think the defense is fine. It's the combination of the $7,400 price, which is a little high, and the fact that he's not getting every carry, and that there's going to be other guys mixing in. Like if I knew he was going to get 20 plus carries, then I would be smash spot. Like this is a guarantee. But he's only getting 13 to 14 carries, that's what concerns me.
Yeah, but 13 to 14 carries and averaging, what is it?
He's the best.
6-7 yards a carry.
I think 20 points at this price is not enough. I think he needs to get over 25 for it to be worth it.
I agree with that, and I think we can get there. So that, again, I'm not talking about 20% of my lineups, but I'm going to have some taste of him, and especially from the standpoint of, the one-offs. And, sometimes you're going to need the one-offs to fill your spots. I'm with you. I don't think I'm going to get too invested. There's just too many other good receivers for me to. I'll never say no to Marvin Harrison, but 8,900, that has to be 30.
It has to be, and he's done it once against literally a nobody. He just torched a way inferior opponent. But the fact, Notre Dame's good, but the fact that he can have a 3 for 32 game and a 2 for 18 game, there's just no point of paying that much money for him because. Maryland's not great, but they're not as bad as those other teams. And even if they hold them to 6 for 101, that's not enough at this price.
I agree. Now, on the other side, I will say this much because I do believe this is going to – I think Ohio State's going to wake up and punch him in the mouth. I do think you might get a little bit of late, some yards through there. I'm not taking 2-2. But I think Jones or Felton could be decent, $5,500, $600 receivers in the right spot. So Maryland receivers, maybe. I'm going to play a little bit, looking for those, 15, 20 points from a 5K receiver. I think is possible.
Well, I think to your point, the one thing I'm not really on these Maryland receivers, but I think to your point, they're going to have to be throwing a lot. And I think from a safety perspective, these guys should get a lot of catches. Just because 2-2 is pretty good, and they're going to be losing, and they're just going to be throwing. They might throw 45 times.
That's it. And Jayshwan Jones has had 2 straight 20-point games. So again, at 5,600, if I can get 20 out of 5,600, I'm dancing.
Yeah, and the safety of the catches that he'll probably get too. So I like it. I like it. All right, I'm going to move over. I don't know why I'm weird. I'm a Jersey guy. You are too.
Yes.
I get all excited about Rutgers for some reason.
I do. I can't bet him. I can't bet him in New Jersey, but I can play him in DFS.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what it is? It's been so long since there's been a legitimately. I guess Pacheco, but really Pacheco wasn't a smash DFS player in college. He was decent, but he wasn't a guy you were playing a lot. He just ended up getting to a good offense in the NFL and being better in the NFL than he was in college.
It's been Ray Rice.
Yeah, exactly. Ray Rice is, and that was so long ago. I wasn't even playing DFS.
I wasn't that much, but I was betting. But yeah.
So listen, they had this guy Monengay is their workhorse. He's getting you pretty much 20 carries a game. He had 11, but that was Michigan. They had no business. They really tough to move the ball against them. But other than that, I mean, he had 28 carries against Temple. He's got 5 touchdowns on the year. And I think where I like him most is this Wisconsin run defense is not like what it used to be. This is not like some like tough Wisconsin front that you can't run on. They've gotten beat this year. They're beatable. And Rutgers doesn't throw the ball. Like their way to beat you is on the ground. And so they're going to give this guy a lot of touches, especially if they're in this game, which I think they could be. I mean, this Wisconsin team is not that good. So I think Rutgers can maybe slow them down a little bit and stay in the game, run the ball, try and slow this down. He's going to get the 20 touches. And the biggest thing about this is, as we're saying, all this chalk that's out there to play that we got to go after, he looks like he's going to be really low owned. So if he comes out here and gets us 100 and a score at this 5K price point where there's not a ton of value at running back, he could be the sneaky difference maker at the low ownership to make these lineups work.
Agree. I'll triple stamp that one. Like you said, key points there. Everybody runs against Vatech, but you still got to get it done. He did. Had a huge smash game there. Good game against Temple. Michigan's tough spot. Like we all know that. But it could be big this week. Having a game like this for Rutgers, they were in that Michigan game for quite a while until late in the game they threw a pick 6 that kind of changed the momentum there. They're like a sneaky good team this year. I think what are they overall 4-1? So I like him a ton this week. I'm with you. When I started my charts, I have him right around 8th, but I mean at that price, he could even fall into my top 3 or 4. So yeah, he's up there. And he's the only one on Rutgers, by the way, that I would play.
Yeah, he's really the only guy you can play. But I think that's the point. I think he's a pretty good play, but there's just not a lot you're going to find under 50, 800 this week. So it's like if you're looking for value, like I think he's one of the guys you can go to that actually has the upside you need. So that's the value that I really like. The other guy the 2 guys at receiver I'll mention on Wisconsin is Pauling. He's their main guy. He hasn't been great. If there is a guy that's going to have a smash game at under 5K, he would probably be it. And then the Rutgers does have this guy, Jaquay Jackson, who
he does. Yep.
He's 3,900. He's gotten 2 games over 10 points. He's under 4K. He gets a lot of targets. If he scores a touchdown, a big play, he could certainly pay off a $3,900 price tag.
Yeah, he could. And, I'd like to get your opinion real quick on Braylon Allen, because now that we know what's his name, DeLucia, the backup there is out. They were playing games with us with Braylon Allen for the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
And Malusi is the guy, or Malusi is out. So now it's Braylon Allen to have and nothing else. I hate 8,400. I hate the price tag. Rutgers is gonna punch in the mouth a little bit, but he'll have room to run. I just think 8,400 needs 35, 30, and I think that means 3 touchdowns to me.
So I agree. And I think you said it the best. They're playing with us, because I looked at the news and I was reading, and the coach made a statement, which just gave me, I think he's full of it, but you have to take him for his word, I guess. He made a statement saying nothing's going to change. We're still going to rotate our backs, which is like, because they want to keep Braylon healthy, I guess, fresh for the end of the year. I don't know why. Now, I don't know if he means that. I don't know if they're going to play someone else. I don't know if he's just messing with us. He did say that, though. So take that information how you will. You have to think it has to help him a little bit, right? Because the other guy was closer to talent than him, than I'm sure the next back they have is. I mean, Braylon Allen's the best running back in the slate. It's not close. Is this a great smash spot against Rutgers? No. Rutgers, because we'll slow it down. They play good defense. And the 8,400 is high. So it's going to be tough to make your lineup work. But he does have the ability to get to that ceiling where he pays it off. So, if you're playing a lot with a lot of value and you can fit him in, I'm not going to tell you it's a bad play, but it's just tough to make it work. And I think you can get away with not playing him.
I agree. And it's Luke Fickell there now, right? The Cincy guy? Yep. Yeah. I just think, listen, I'm going to be tempted to play him in one or, a couple here or there, but I think it's more stay away from me.
I agree. I think we can load up in those other games, and and we can find balance at different positions. So getting him in there just is it.
Yeah, I have a couple other rushing games that I like better. So, yep.
Agreed. All right, we can look at the UCLA Washington State game. Interesting one. I think this is an intriguing game in real life from fantasy perspective. I think there will be people that like it, that want to play it, that like Chip Kelly's offense, that like this Washington State team. I think this is a stay away spot. This team's more defensive from UCLA, run the ball, slow down the pace. Then it seems like an explosive spot. I don't like UCLA's quarterback. I think UCLA's quarterback is going to be good eventually, but he's a freshman. I don't think he's there yet. This is a good Washington State team. Not a great defensive team, but they're still a good team. I just don't think that he's there yet. So on the UCLA side, the only guys I'm really interested in would be the backs because they are going to feed them the ball. Steele's the guy. The problem is they eat into each other. They both kind of split carries. So with that, they kind of handicap themselves. They are cheap enough to play, but I won't be overexposed.
Yeah, I do like Carson Steele. I think the price is good, but yeah, I won't get too crazy on him. Like you said, the fact that there's a little bit more of a share that I like, but I still think I'm going to play some Carson Steele. As for, as much as I love the Washington State passing attack, this just seems like a tough spot for them. UCLA, we mentioned it earlier, being favored against the 13th ranked team in the nation. And what's UCLA, like 2-3 or 3-2, whatever it is. They haven't looked good at all. I mean, they got absolutely dominated in Utah, couldn't even move the ball. And here they are favored against an offensive juggernaut. Something's up. Something just doesn't smell right. Will I try and tackle some Cam Ward? Yeah, but I don't even know if it'll be that much. I think I'm really staying away from this game in general.
I think the price for Cam Ward is fair, and we've seen him have some explosive games. So, listen, he's got 3 40-point games, which is wild. I can get behind Ward. I'm not overexposed. I do think this is not the best environment with UCLA running the ball, but I do see the upside there with Ward. I do think some of these receivers are, but because they're pretty affordable at only $6K with the amount of volume Kelly gets, he certainly has the upside to pay off that price tag, especially with Victor out and kind of getting funneled more targets. You could also play Kyle Williams with Victor out because I think at 5,400 he's pretty affordable, getting more targets and what's supposedly or what we've seen to be a pretty explosive passing attack. So I do like these Washington State receivers a bit.
Yeah, and I could see that if you are going to have some confidence in any part of Washington State's game, I think it is, obviously in the passing attack. So, yeah, I like it.
All right. I am pretty much full fading this Wake Forest Clemson game. Clemson's got a good defense. I don't think anyone on Wake Forest is going to be, having a ceiling or explosive day. If anything, I'd be playing Clemson. And the only thing on Clemson, I would, Shipley's their guy, 6,400. I think a little overpriced. He's splitting carries. I don't love Shipley, but I can certainly see it from him. The guy I would play is this freshman receiver that kind of broke out last week in Tyler Brown, who had 151.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. He's one of my favorites on the slate, actually. So when you said full fade, I got a little scared. But, yeah, now you wrapped it back into Tyler Brown. That's the one I'm targeting. And, I'm targeting Tyler Brown and maybe not much else. I'm with you. But I think Tyler Brown – we've seen Dabo do this in the past. They have they've had some good receivers come out of Clemson, but they're going to be desperate, and they need to start playing some of the more, high talent that they have, even though it's young. Tyler Brown could be explosive this week.
Yeah, he looks like he's a really good player.
Yeah,
the matchup doesn't look like it's a tough matchup for him. He probably is now featured in this passing attack, and 5,300 is certainly affordable enough for him. So he would be the target here as another receiver to fit into some of these lineups. Let's move this train over to this Florida State Virginia Tech game. This is one where if you don't want to start thinking about how you're going to get different and playing some lower stuff, this is the one that I would target, and I think it's both teams. And the reason being, the one quarterback under 6K that I think is playable this week is Virginia Tech's quarterback in Kyron Drones. The main reason for it, this guy in the last 3 weeks has 2 games where he's rushed it over 20 times. They get a guy who's basically a running back and a quarterback at under 6K it's just too cheap for him. Even against a team that's way better than them, if he's going to run this much, he has 4 rushing touchdowns the last 2 games, and even if he doesn't need to throw for more than 190-1, and that's enough based on the rushing as well. So I don't love it because there's so many other explosive games, but my favorite value quarterback I'm looking for will be Jones this week.
He's my number one GPP quarterback of the week.
Wow, really?
Yeah, even over Daniels, even over Cook, even over some of the others we're going to get to 5,600. And I watched Castellanos from BC, who is from the similar ilk, play a very good game against Florida State. And you saw Cade Klubnik, who I don't think is a very good quarterback, have a good game against Florida State.
Sure.
Like Florida State's good. They're my favorite team. We've talked about this, but they do have some weaknesses from a standpoint of they let up some good games to quarterbacks. So I like Drones a lot, and that's it on Virginia Tech. On the other side, we've talked about it all year. Take any running back, and Trey Benson hasn't lit it up yet, but I don't care. At 6,600, I'm willing to take a chance. I mean, we've seen Ali. We've seen, we just talked about the guy from Rutgers in Monagai. They've all lit up Virginia Tech.
True.
I got to go Benson here this week at 6,600. Travis will be in there. What I'm worried about from a passing standpoint is, how long they're going to pass. This could get out of hand potentially, but I'll take Benson and I'll take Drones. And those are two I'm really focused on this week.
I think it's interesting. I think you're right. It's a smash spot for Benson. Do you think does he hit more than 14 carries? Like that, if he does, then it's an easy 100%. Does he get that?
He should. He should this week. And I mean, they've been talking about it, how they do need to commit to the run more. Clemson game kind of got away from them. They were down double digits early, and they just couldn't move the ball on the ground. I think that for that reason, they've had 2 weeks to practice, and I think they want to get back to more that physical style because you can't beat teams if you can't run the ball. So I do think they're going to commit a little more this week to running.
I like it. Now, I got one more question before we wrap up this game. Will you be pairing any pass catchers with drones?
With drones. If I did, I liked Lane a little bit at 5,300. I thought, he's had some good games. And what's more important, I think he's had them with drones. I'm trying to remember his numbers. I'm looking up now. Yeah, he had a good game last week with drones there. So that's why I liked Lane a little bit.
Yeah, he's got 3 touchdowns. I mean, Felton was probably my preferred of them. Not as many touchdowns, gets a little bit more targets. Neither of them are super explosive, but I kind of feel like if Jones is going to get there, I feel like one of them will probably have a good game. So I kind of want to just kind of play him with him, but I don't think you have to pair them.
You don't. And then from the Florida State side, listen, Keon Coleman will always be in play, but if you want to go cheap and you want someone that's out there that gets a ton of snaps, and look, I love Johnny Wilson. It's actually Jaheim Bell, the tight end, 4,300. I think he's going to be in play for me this week. Not the greatest game against Clemson, but he's out there all the time. He's blocking. He's getting screens. He's getting some balls down near the goal line. So I like Bell. And Wilson's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I just can't pair Wilson and Coleman together because they usually – one goes off, the other goes off.
I agree. I would only go with one of them. And Bell's cheap, and he's one of the better tight ends in the country. So Bell is a good kind of salary saver here in this spot. So I like that call as well. All right. Hey, the second game of the day. So there's 2 games to smash pot. We already went over Missouri, LSU. Now we're going to go over North Carolina, Syracuse. Now, North Carolina is your prototypical fantasy-friendly team. Right? If you get another team that has a good offense or even just a good quarterback against North Carolina, you are going to be in a good position for fantasy purposes.
Yep.
If you watch our show, if you've ever watched our show before, I have an affinity for Schrader. I love Syracuse quarterback. This guy can run he's a running back that happens to play quarterback and throws it too. Now, his tight end, who's his top receiver, is out. So I think they're a little bit more limited through the air. He's not going to throw for 300 yards, likely. But the thing is, he can throw for 200 and a touchdown or 2 and also run for another 100 and a touchdown or 2. That combination at only 7,200 and what should be an explosive offensive game is going to be very dangerous. Schrader, I say, is definitely in my top 3 quarterbacks of the week.
Yeah, let me flip my page. I have Schrader. Where do I have him? I have him 6. So he's right there. I like him a lot. The number's great. North Carolina's defense isn't great. We know that. I think this is a week. He was a little down last week for Clemson. We get it. So I think, this is a good spot for Syracuse. I think they're being undervalued this week after their kind of, I'll call it bad performance against Clemson. And Schrader's going to be the reason they stay in this game. So Schrader's well in the player pool for me. I'm with you. And my second favorite on Clemson, not on Clemson, on Syracuse, is LeQuint Allen. I talked about him last week. His low this year is 19.7. I mean, he still managed to find a way rushing just for 52 yards last week to put up 20 points. And now he gets UNC. I mean, this guy is one of those guys, he's 60, 70% touches. UNC 185th against running backs. This is awesome. Under 6K, great spot. I think both running backs are under 6K, great spots this week. But LeQuint Allen, he catches about 3 to 4 balls a week too. He had 6 last week. I think it's, like you said, now without the top receiver, he becomes even probably more special or more focused in the passing game. Yeah, I Schrader, LeQuint Allen in my top 2.
LeQuint Allen is my number 1 running back of the week. Number 1 play.
Sorry to take that steam.
No. Yeah. I'm happy you brought it up. Number 1 play. And the reason is, listen, it's a smash spot against North Carolina. They're not good against the run. It's a great opportunity for him. But then he rises that floor he has 15 catches in the last 3 weeks. If he gets you between 4 to 6 catches in the game and makes you 4 to 6 points on top of the rushing he's already going to give you, it's just gravy. It just raises the floor, and he's under 6K. He's affordable, and that's the point that we're making. Like, you don't have to break the bank for him. It's a really great spot. He just makes so much sense, and I think the sneakiest thing for me is I'm going to be playing. I have no problem with, which I think people get uncomfortable by this, but I'm going to do it. I'm playing Allen with Schrader in a lot.
No, I agree. I got no problem with it. No problem.
And most people don't want to play the quarterback and the running back because they feel to eat each other. In this spot, one, Schrader could throw one to him. He's got 15 catches in the last 3 games, so he's basically one of his receivers. 2, Syracuse could run in all of their touchdowns, right? They might not throw a touchdown. They could be Schrader runs in 2 and Allen runs in 2. So there's plenty of ways for them both to get there this week at an affordable price.
And for the record, Yvonne's saying top 3. I have LeQuint Allen as 2. So, I didn't think anybody was going to go over that. You got him as 1. Yeah. Awesome. My one's still out there. We'll talk my 1 in a second. But
there you go. I can't wait. I think I have an idea who your 1 is. Well, it could be you guys. Okay, hold on. We'll have to see. Now, the news that we have to talk about. This is going to be a very interesting play of how we manage this. North Carolina got a transfer in Devontae Walker. He came into the year as their number 1 receiver. He was supposed to be their guy. Some weird, I don't even feel like getting into the details. Some weird NCAA transfer rule basically didn't allow him to play. He had to sit on the bench.
It was that he transferred once already. You're not supposed to transfer twice, but the one time he transferred was during COVID, and he never ended up playing a game. So It was like, it was odd. So yeah. I don't know.
Odd. It was like people are pissed off. I think that's part of the story because there's a lot of emotions around it. North Carolina was clear. They had someone in politics in North Carolina write a letter to the NCAA explaining why they should let him play. It got pretty into the weeds. Anyway, the point is they cleared him to play. He's allowed to play this week. They just got him out yesterday or 2 days ago. Very new. DFS has him at 3K.
He's
probably the number 1 receiver on North Carolina. He's way underpriced. I can't guarantee what his usage will be in his first game playing. But if it's what we thought it should have been from the beginning of the year at 3K, it's the most ridiculous mispricing that we'll have ever. So I don't know what his ownership will be. People know this. This isn't a secret. 80% ended up being 60, 70%.
Yeah, I almost went to 80. Yeah, but I'm with you. 60, 70 easily in GPP. Easy.
Yeah. So, and the scary part about it, because it's his first game, he could flop. It's no guarantee. He hasn't played a game yet. So, I do think it's a great spot for him. Like, I'm going to be playing a lot of him too. I'm going to be invested. But like at 70%, then you start thinking, well, what are the chances he doesn't get there? Because if I don't have him, then what kind of edge is that give me? So it's a lot to think about of like how you want to play. This is a very strategic play. In what looks like a great environment at 3K, it's a really, really easy way to kind of give yourself some flexibility to build out your roster. So I like the play, but just being cautious with the ownership.
I love the play. Even if you're wrong, it's 3K. Even if he finds 3 catches for 30 yards or 6-7 points, it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to cripple your lineups. You got to get everything else right. I got it. I've seen guys win, some big monies with snowflakes in their lineup. This can't even be a snowflake with 8-10 points at 3K. I just think I'm with you. I guess the usage would scare me a little bit, but because of all this hype, all this anger surrounded about this suspension, that I think they're going to want to showcase him. I don't think there's going to be any restrictions. Maybe some snaps restrictions, but even then, the only way this fails is if he gets 0. That's it. In my opinion.
And I do agree. I do see a scenario where they try to force him the ball and like stick it and be like really show that he let it be his show. That is very much within the realm of possibilities. And if that's the case, then it's just a complete smash play because he could go. He could be the number 1 receiver on the slate at the minimum price.
Yep. I will follow the public on this one. I mean, do I get to 60, 70? Maybe not quite that high, but do I get to 50 at 3K? I very possibly.
And I think the most challenging part about it is when you're building lineups, especially by hand, and you need that one spot left where you just need 3K. It's like, oh, why I got a solution for that? Yeah, throw them in and move on. So that's where 50% can easily just by making your lineup become like 80%, just because
it can.
The way you built your lineup. So, all right.
How about Drake May? Real fast. I do think Drake May is in play too.
I like Drake May a lot as a play. My concern with Drake May is just 9,500.
Yeah,
he's got to be great. The way I'm playing May is I'm going to play him a lot in game stacks where I'm loading up on this game as the high scoring game. But I'm probably not going to be featuring May in lineups with like Daniels and other top quarterbacks. I'm going to try to just play May in this game stack environment alone.
Could you get him there with drones?
Yeah, because Jones is the budget quarterback that you can make it work. But if I did do that, I would definitely be still like playing Allen or at least somebody on Syracuse, because May at 9,500 doesn't get there if this isn't a back and forth high swing game.
No, 1,000% agree. I'm glad you said that. May only make sense if Syracuse is scoring a little bit too.
Exactly. So you need some exposure to Syracuse for May to work.
Yep.
All right, let's go to Bama A&M. Full fade for me.
I agree. I've seen some people like Milrow, and I don't.
I don't like Milrow. I mean, I would consider maybe an A&M receiver. I love Stewart. He's been hurt. He hasn't been the same guy from the beginning of the year. Bama's not the week that you want to, even though it's not the same Bama as always, it's still Bama. It's not, they're still well above average. Not the week where I want to start taking shots on guys. Honestly, the guy I probably would consider most is Texas A&M's running back, Le'Veon Moss. He's now becoming the featured guy. Like we said, this isn't the Bama of old. If he's going to get 20 touches at only 5,400, he can get there because he's affordable. Again, because it's Bama, I don't love it, but he's probably the guy I like the most.
I agree. Unfortunately with Stewart, it's the fact that Weigman's not there anymore. I mean, that Max Johnson has shown he can't get it down the field quite as well as Weigman could, and he just is more willing to spread it out. So yeah, I'm pretty much full fade in this game as well. And if that burns me, it's not going to kill me. It won't kill me in lineups. This game is not turning into a 70-point game.
Agreed. Maybe one guy gets there, but that's it. It's not going to be like a big back and forth. All right, let's look at this Purdue-Iowa game. Historically, Iowa's not a team to target low-scoring games, good defense. This isn't the classic Iowa defense of old that shuts people down. They're still pretty good, though. It's just maybe a little bit worse than normal. Iowa's offense is almost completely untouchable. Maybe Eric All I'd consider as a receiver. He's probably their most targeted guy if you want to go cheap, but not someone I really love. And you could play some of this Purdue passing game, but against Iowa, this isn't the best game environment. I think there's other spots to attack.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's not much I like here, so I'm good.
I'm with you there. Now, we do have a game here that is, in terms of game environments, in the top 5, at least for this week. It's definitely one to look at. And I am excited by the news that Plumlee's playing.
Love it.
And if he wasn't playing, I would probably come off this game. With him playing, and Bean's one of the best backup quarterbacks in the country. I don't think Bean's as good as fantasy quarterback. I think he's a little bit more limited. But Plumlee is. And I think Plumlee at under 8K is underpriced here with a ton of rushing upside and what should be a good matchup I actually like Plumlee a good amount. He'll be in my player pool for sure. How about you?
100%. I mean, he had, what did I write the notes? He had like 19 carries in just 2 games that he started this year. And I remember him. He can be a guy that could get you 20 carries in the game. It depends which way they want to go in this. So I really do like Plumlee. He's in play. I'm very pumped that he's playing. Good price. But when I talked earlier about my number 1 running back, and I know he might not like stick out truly, but it's RJ Harvey. It's just a team that UCF has committed to the run. They are running the ball at 58% of the time. And they just, and I don't think Plumlee coming back changes much of that. They are more RPO when Plumlee's there. I think Harvey is in line for a huge game this week. 6,100, it puts us right around where we like with LaQuint Allen and some others. Omarion Hampton, they're right in that, pocket of 6K. I think Harvey is in line for a 30-point game. So I'm excited for him this week. And he's right there for me among the top RBs.
I'm with you. I mean, 7 touchdowns, a lot of usage. 6,100, certainly affordable. I agree. I think Hardy's in a really, really good spot here. But when you said it, even when you were on this game, I still wasn't 100% sure you were going to go with Harvey or Neal. Neal's also in a really good smash spot here. I mean,
yeah, it's just Bean. I know I hear your Bean's good. I just, like you said, once they start screwing, they said Daniels might even like dress. Like, I don't know what to do when all this stuff happens, but Neal is great. I'm with you.
I say you're right, but I think Neal is least affected by that because
you're probably right.
They hand him the ball. He doesn't need to worry about who's throwing it. He'll get his carries. Even if one of them's hurt, they'll just hand him the ball more. And this UCSF team is bad against the run. They have gotten beaten on the run. So this seems like a good spot by Neal. I'm concerned about the rest of this offense. Who's playing? Who's competitive? It's all concerned, but Neal will be a part of it, and he will get his carries. So at 6,300, I will be getting a good share of Neal in there as well.
I agree, and I could see myself playing Neal Harvey and being just fine with 2 running backs in this game.
Yeah, you can do that for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I also will play some of these USCF receivers. My preferred guy is Hudson. He's had a few games where he's gone off. He wasn't great against Baylor last week, but that was without Plumlee. I mean, he had some great games without Plumlee too, but I think he's better with Plumlee. He's going to get his man back at 5,600. He's had 3 smash games already this year. And against Kansas, this is another spot where he could have another pretty big day.
No, he definitely could. Now, how about that game last week? I bet Baylor. And for full disclosure, I didn't know I won the game. Probably for 2 hours later. They were down 28-7. I fully gave up, and I come back and look. I was like, they just won. But UCF is very, to your point, that's where I was coming back to, very bad defensively. Yep. Neal is in play for Kansas, but on the other side, their passing game, they're going to need to use it a little bit because that defense, it's going to let up points.
Exactly. And that's where this is just a good game environment. You can get some exposure to this game because we are expecting it to be a bit of a back and forth. Points will be scored. So it's a great place to target some fantasy assets. Last game of the day for our purposes, Florida Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt's pretty bad. Florida's got a decent defense. On the Vanderbilt side, we can make it quick. I'm probably the only guy I would even consider is Shepard. He's 5,600. He does get the ball a lot. Florida's not the team to target, but as much as they target him in the passing game at 5,700, I can get behind it, but I wouldn't consider anyone else on the Vanderbilt side.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to get too invested. Even Florida's interesting, right? I mean, there's times they can't stop anyone, and then all of a sudden they just put a plug on Tennessee. And then last week, Ray Davis, they were the top 5-10 rushing defense in the nation, according to some metrics, and they let up a 50 burger to Ray Davis. So I don't know what this team is, but Vanderbilt's not good enough to take advantage of it like some of these other teams. So I'm with you. It's probably only a play on Shepard. But on the other side,
yes, there we
go. I think we got some good matchups, and it's never Graham Mertz for me. I think that guy's a complete bum. But in the running game, it's going to be interesting because if ETN comes anywhere near out, I mean, Johnson becomes an absolute, must play for me.
And that's where I land too. And it all comes down to ETN. ETN in. I don't love Johnson. They're splitting carries, and then there's not enough volume, and then I'm probably just gonna not get as exposed to it. But with ETN out, the amount of volume I would expect Johnson to have, and what it looks like a smash. If he's gonna get than 20 carries in what should be a really good matchup against a pretty bad Vanderbilt defense. Johnson would then become one of my favorite running back plays on the slate. So it's all about what ETN does to then kind of create Johnson.
I agree. And then he's right in that range where we've seen a lot of people right now at 6K. Running back in that area could be really, really valuable this week.
Yeah.
And then in the receiver area, I mean, this kid is just special. Ricky Pearsall. Yeah. I mean, the catches he makes, he's 7,400 is quite a bit to pay up. But if they're going to have a chance to score in any week in the passing game, it's this week. I like Pearsall a lot. I'll put him in probably my top 10 receiver player pool.
Yeah, I like Pearsall. I mean, to your point, he's definitely an extremely great talent. I think 7,400 for him is a little high, which is, I just think there's, we're getting neighbors for 10K less, almost 900 less. So that's where I'm struggling with Pearsall. It's just a little too overpriced. But to your point, he's certainly talented enough in a weak matchup to have that ceiling game. So wouldn't tell you couldn't play him as long as you could afford him.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm getting Tez Walker at places, I'm going to be able to fit Pearsall here or there. I mean, and again, that's only if I'm staying out of the LSU game. You're right. Those receivers in that game, way more valuable than this number.
For sure. Well, that is a wrap for this slate. Hey, it's going to be a fun slate tomorrow. A lot of interesting games to target. I think more than anything, it's a lot of strategy tomorrow. A lot of ownership conversation, how to get different, how to build unique rosters, what games to stack. It's going to be fun. Come back next week, post your lineups, let us know how you do. We'd love to see some green screens coming out of the week. Before we wrap up for the day, Dave, what is your bet of the day tomorrow?
Yeah, it's funny. I gave one out last week with Clemson, and I mean with Syracuse. Before the game, I just saw a lot of noise and news, and I actually ended up flipping. Not that mattered. I ended up being wrong. But this one I'm not going to flip on this week. I feel really confident in this game. I think Georgia has been taking too many punches. I think it's time for them to swing back. Kentucky's on the up after a big week. I think this is Georgia's time. Bauer's coming up big late in the game last week, obviously. I think Georgia covers this number, 14.5. And I think they do it. It's time for Georgia to wake up. And if they don't this week, I can fully say that they're vulnerable. But I won't say that until I see this week. I'll take Georgia at the 14 points. I like them this week big.
There you have it. Georgia big. Georgia is starting to come on. I can see that. I like that call. It should be an exciting game, an exciting weekend. I'm looking forward to it. That's a wrap for us. Good luck this week. See you next week.